When is a farm in Australia not an Australian farm?
They don't want Chinese cotton anymore. They want sustainable Australian cotton. Hugo Boss, Lacoste, Marni, Ralph Lauren. But at the end of the day, when they come over here, they still want to do it like they did back home.
Recently, Gundaline Station in New South Wales was bought by a Chinese-owned company. This is what Aussie workers on the farm say happened next.
When you're working out on these remote properties, you're out a long way from town. You might only go in once every week or every 2 weeks. The farm in total size is 16,000 hectares. We were told by the management company that it would be new owners, absentee owners, that wouldn't be there very often. They'd come for a visit, but that it would just be business as usual.
But that wasn't true, and workers say the unlawful expectations of the new Chinese owners were immediately enforced by Australian consultants, Customised Farm Management or CFM.
The management company CFM started to do some dodgy practices to facilitate the new owners. That's when they went ugly. My first red flag was the new owners came up to me and they wanted me to teach their foreign workers how to drive machinery and operate very large, very complicated machinery, and with very, very limited English. No safety tickets, hardly even a driver's licence. An Australian one. We knew that eventually someone will get hurt.
It didn't take long before untrained foreign workers were risking their lives and the lives of others.
A Chinese employee was driving a heavy excavator across site, around the yards, around the sheds, and he's driven it under some power lines with the bucket still up in the air, and he nearly hit it by probably less than a metre. Everybody on site's jumping up and down, telling him, yelling at him, stop the machine. He's going to hit a power line. But we were waving at him, he couldn't understand. I know he didn't have an Australian driver's licence because we asked him for one of them. Because as an Australian on the farm, we're not allowed to operate any of the machinery without a driver's licence ourselves.
Unlicensed workers are also encouraged to drive on Australian roads.
They would be supplied with a work vehicle and told, you can take this into town to do your groceries. They would put a trailer behind it and say, go pick up this from Bunnings or from the ag supply shop. There was numerous times where they would pull into the yard. I'd see an unsecured load on the back with no straps on it, or the safety chains not hooked up, or even the power lights for the trailers not plugged in, because they just didn't have any idea.
When Aussie workers spoke up about safety, they say they were bullied or sacked.
When the owners heard that we were refusing to teach them, they turned around to their workers and said, go out after hours, jump in machinery and teach yourself. And when we brought it to CFM's attention, they said, well, it's the owner's machines, they own it, it's their land, they can do what they want. Oh, it's scary. It's scary. Being out on a farm is dangerous. The machinery is dangerous. It has one of the highest injury rates and death rates of any industry. You think, well, what am I going to see? What will I be witness to? Will I go out in the morning and find a worker has jumped on a piece of machinery at night and rolled it into a channel and you find them dead?
Aussie workers say they've also been forced to illegally cover up a massive fuel spill.
So there was a large diesel container that feeds a local lift pump that lifts water between channels. It had a bit over 10,000 litres in it at the time, and one of the valves on the bottom had rusted out and had started leaking. We informed the management company of it happening. Then one of the workers was told to dig a small channel to drain it into one of the water channels, causing mass fish die off. You've got frogs and bird life and everything surrounding the channel, and then that water was then pumped back into the dam and over the paddocks. Anytime you get a chemical spill or a fuel spill, there's proper procedures you have to follow. You have to properly try and catch as much of it as you can and report it to the authorities, but none of that has happened with this. At the end, it just comes down to their bottom line.
And the environmental threats don't stop there. Aussie workers say Australia's entire biosecurity is also under threat at Gundaline.
The new owners brought these containers in with farming equipment straight out of China because it was a cheaper product. In the containers there were sticks, leaves, grass, insects. So we've documented it, and there were some reports made to Biosecurity. They then followed the next container load out. The second that we opened it, they rolled in off the highway. You had 2 Asian fruit fly species, 2 spiders that we didn't have here in Australia. We didn't hear much else from it after that, but then when a third container was brought in, it was brought in at night and they made backpackers unload it. No Australians were unloading that container because, well, obviously we had seen what we had seen in the previous containers and reported it.
So what about the police and the regulators like Safe Work New South Wales? Well, the Aussie workers say they were instructed to deliberately mislead anyone who came onto the property to conduct an inspection.
You were told that, okay, leave a few obvious things for them to see, a few small things that we can easily fix ourselves. That way they don't dig too deep and find the larger problems.
The Aussie workers say some staff were sacked and then paid hush money.
There was key workers that they no longer wanted on site because they would call it troublesome. They would say diligent about their work, on top of safety and knowing what's lawful and what's not. When they got rid of those persons, they were offered cash backhands to just leave silently, leave quietly, not to kick up a fuss, not to go talk to people.
And the Aussie workers who kept their jobs say they continued to be threatened by the Chinese owners and the Australian farm management consultants.
They gathered together all the remaining staff, took us into the office for a meeting. They ran down the ex-staff saying, that they are their dogs. All they want to do is cause trouble. They even went to the extent of saying, if we believe that you have been talking to them, we will confiscate your personal electric devices, your phones, computers, laptops, etc. Or it'll be up to you to prove innocence otherwise you'll be instantly terminated. I knew it wasn't legal. I knew it wasn't legal in Australia.
And it's not just Gundaline. The same abuses of Australian laws and regulations are happening more and more as Aussie farms continue to be bought up by foreign powers.
They don't want to follow standards, they just want to get in, make as much money as they can. They'll turn a blind eye to almost anything. The Chinese stand over the Australian government, don't they? They are a bully nation.
Enough is enough. We must listen to Aussie workers like these before it's too late. If we don't protect rural Australia, we will lose our way of life forever.
I'm speaking out because one day my kids might be growing up in this region. What do I want it to be like for them? Having our resources owned by foreign companies, we are losing a lot of power as a country